Libertarian panel. I'm excited to be doing this again. I pitched this idea for the 2025 convention to platform our local office hearers and sort of hear their war stories and against the government and what we can do locally for liberty. People loved it so much they asked me to do it again, so here I am again. In case you don't know me, I'm Morgen Mogus. I'm the chair of the elections committee. I'm also the chair of the Libertarian Party of Butler County. We're aiming to field plenty of candidates down the ballot across the slate in 2026 and ideally pivot those candidates into local runs in 2027. The goal of this panel is to be an educational resource for people who might be thinking about running for office, but want more information. You know, when as the chair of the elections committee, I get a lot of questions from a lot of people asking about how do I run for local office, what office is right for me, and so on. I'm hoping to tackle all these questions a prospective candidate might have, to hear experiences directly from libertarians serving in office and what they can do locally, and the big part, how libertarians can win, because it does happen, and quite frequently in Pennsylvania. Without further ado, that's enough from me. Let's introduce our elected libertarians. I'll start with you first, Reece. The microphone's right behind you. It is live, I believe. I'll start with you first, and then we can just work the way down. So tell us a little about yourself, the office you've been elected to, and the community you serve.
Hello, my name is Reece Smith. I just this past November was elected to the Carlinton School District. Thank you. We have about 100 students per grade. It comprises of 3 municipalities right outside the city of Pittsburgh.
I'm Matt Zechman. I am the mayor of Cleona Borough. I was elected this past, elected in November. I took office in the beginning of January. My town is pretty much a square mile, but we have a little over 2,000 people. Our police department, which I oversee now, does provide service for 4 other municipalities as well. So it kind of expands beyond there, but yep.
I'm Pete Schwarze. I'm from Jefferson Township. The Jefferson Township in Berks County, there's 3 Jefferson Townships in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm in the smallest one. This is the township that has 2,000 people and about 3,000 cows. So we're kind of in the minority here. I was elected auditor twice, actually, and also served as on the township supervisors. And the most contentious issue that we had while I was serving was, should we have a dog barking ordinance? Which was a lot of fun. We lost.
Oh, man.
It's against the law for a dog to bark in Jefferson Township.
So my next question is, what made you decide to run for local office?
We're starting with me.
Yeah, we can work the way back.
I actually wanted to serve. I mean, keep in mind that auditor was not the first time I had ever ran. I had run and lost as far back as 45 years ago. And that was before I was a libertarian. By the way, everybody likes to talk about when they became a libertarian. Tony was talking earlier about, Harry Brown. I don't know if this ages me fairly well, but I became a registered libertarian when Andre Moreau ran for president. So If you guys go back that far, you may have to Google him. And I first heard of the Libertarian Party when Ed Clark was running. My first time running for office was 1982. And I lost big time. So I didn't want to stop. I just actually did want to serve.
So for me, I've been a libertarian since 2019. At that time, just a brief backstory, I became a libertarian. I was deployed to Afghanistan at the time. And I kind of had this awakening moment of like, what are we actually doing here? And really then I started to look at all the other wars and I'm like, what were we doing in those as well? And very applicable today as to what's going on in the Middle East. But beside the point, I've been politically opinionated for a while, and I had no problem debating with people on Facebook about it, but I didn't necessarily want to hold a public office. My town of Cleona, although small and it's my hometown, the place where I grew up and love, is really good at keeping the lights on. Really nothing bad happens. It just kind of stayed put, and we did a good job at that. And I saw all these other improvements we wanted to have done, all these grants we're passing up, and frankly, money that businesses are willing to throw at us to just make things happen, and no one's there to orchestrate it. So knowing the person that I beat in my election was the incumbent, he was on borough council for over 40 years at that point. I knew that if it wasn't me, it would be nobody. So I just kind of thought to myself, I'll just do it. And if I win, then I'll do it for 4 years. And if I don't enjoy it, I won't rerun. But I'm enjoying it so far. So I plan on rerunning that in 4 years from now. But it was kind of just a wanting to fill that void that somebody needed to do. And I'm very glad I did. And I think I'm very capable of it now, despite the doubts I had in the past. But it's something that I've kind of shaped into this role as time went on.
I ran for school board because I wanted to challenge the status quo. Something to understand about my school board is that the members that served, they serve, the measurement of their serving is in decades. Again and again, we had the incumbents just run. They ran completely unopposed. When an incumbent retired, the remaining incumbents found someone they already had familiarity with, and ran them, all together on one ticket. When it came to the elections, the members of our district did not really have a choice at the ballot box. It was just, here's who's running, and that's it. And that really frustrated me. Additionally, they lacked the transparency I thought our community deserved. And so I ran to give my fellow citizens in that community someone else to vote for, and to fight for more transparency and greater communication overall.
Very good. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Yes, please clap. As being the elections chair, every now and then you'll find people that say the common objection is, oh, well, libertarians don't win elections. What did you guys do on your campaigns to win and prove the doubters wrong? Describe your race, the campaign trail, and how you pulled it off.
I'm going to go a bit narrow to tell you guys about something new that I did in my campaign race, because I really would like to see us start to replicate this. I'm not sure if you guys are all aware, but in Pennsylvania, for school districts specifically, the Democrats and Republicans can cross-file and run in each other's primaries. So you can be a Democrat, run in both the Democrat and Republican primaries, be on the primary ballot and win both, and then you appear on the ballot as a Democrat and Republican. This also means that a lot of times the election is over at the primary. Because if the same 4 people win both elections, usually that means when it comes to the actual general election, you have 4 choices. Well, in a vote for 4 example, you have 4 choices only instead of having, say, 8. What we realized through some election law is that cross-filing rule isn't for major parties, it's for all political parties. And so when we have minor party status, we are able to cross-file on their primaries. I was able to successfully get on the Democrat and Republican primaries. I won those primaries, and I appeared in the general election as both a Democrat, Republican, and Libertarian. The primary elections are easier to win because what happens in the general, if people retreat to their tribe, they go, well, I'm a Democrat, I'm going to vote for the Democrat. They go, I'm a Republican, I'm going to vote for the Republican. When you have the primary, the Democrats go in and they say, well, everyone here is a Democrat, so I can just, vote based on what I know about them. Republicans do the same thing. Also, there's less voters voting in those elections. So it's easier to specifically target your door knocking, target your mailers, target them to the people that vote, target them to the super voters. We can essentially run more surgical campaigns that are more winnable if we pursue this strategy. That's something that I did different, and I would like to see us do more at the school board level. Thank you.
So for me, like I mentioned, the person I was running against was the incumbent. At this point, he was the mayor for about 10 years, and then before that on borough council for well over 30. So older demographic, not on social media, not really paying attention to that. And frankly, in my town so small, a lot of people had no idea who the mayor was. So although well established by a lot of the elderly in my town, a lot of the younger people, people my age, middle age, had no idea who the mayor even was. So I had a lot of leverage right there. Going into it, I have a local business, a coffee roasting business, and we do fundraising and donations. And through that, my involvement with the fire company, I was really able to build, kind of preemptively knowing I was going to run for this position, really build my public presence. So that way, when I started running for mayor, it wasn't who's this Matt Zechman guy. It was, oh, he's the coffee guy. And people at least knew I'm doing something good in the community. They know my face, and they can at least trust me a little bit. So as the campaign really went on, there was a few principles to me, the things that I don't like about politics, the kind of the shadiness of it and the moral degrading that goes on. I never stooped to that level, but my competition sure did. And they will. They like to do that. It's an easy way out if you can find, issues with the petitions and the ballots, all sorts of stuff, anything other than just debating us on our policies. So when it came down to that, it was, I'm not going to stoop to that level. I'm going to focus on what I'm going to do for the town. I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to listen to everybody, even if they have the most diverse and opposite opinion of what I have. I'm going to be respectful and I'm going to listen to them. And that goes a really long way. And that's where a lot of parties, no matter what people may vote, there's a threshold when people will stay and vote with their party. But you can cross that threshold if you treat them well enough. And you show them that, oh no, this guy cares about our town. He's going to do something. He already does something. So we know he's just going to keep doing it. And just really showing them that, hey, even in this campaign, I'm not willing to stoop to the same lengths. I had mailers sent out about me, all sorts of stuff, text message campaigns. And I would just do reels on Facebook and Instagram about the things I'm going to do and that I'm currently doing. And it did wonders for me. For $20 on a social media ad, in a lot of the local elections in my area, nobody was doing it. And I couldn't believe it, but I did. For $20, one of my videos could get 20,000 views for a town that has 2,000 people, right? So it's very simple things, but being active on social media, just being a good person, that was something that, not resorting to the toxicity that we see in politics, people don't want that in their hometown. They don't want that close to them. They see it on Fox News and CNN. They don't want a piece of it. So by not bringing that to their town, that already makes you stand out. And for me, I feel like that was a huge advantage that I had going into the election. And then for the stats of it, like I said, he was the incumbent. I ended up getting about 66% of the votes. My hometown had the highest turnout for any local election that they've ever had. Tons of people coming out saying, I showed up just for you. So really good results on my end. And I think, what I just talked about is what made that happen.
I basically opened doors a lot and kept my mouth shut. We have a very unusual pecking order in our township when it comes to political party. It's controlled mostly by Republicans. There are Democrats, and then there's the Libertarians. It's probably something you hear everywhere else. So I'm working the polls when I first got elected auditor, and Republicans were basically saying, my opponent was a Democrat. She had held the auditor's job for 30 years. And the Republicans were being very vocal and very nasty to her. And the hot topic, which an auditor has literally nothing to do with, the hot topic of the day was immigration. And I heard Republican after Republican going in and saying, we got to get rid of you people, saying to her, because you're letting too many immigrants into this country. Now, my views were pretty much the same as hers. But after I'm seeing Republicans taking literature and throwing them on the ground, I wasn't going to tell them, well, I agree with her. I just opened the door and said, thank you for coming out to vote today. And that was pretty much it. I mean, I wasn't, I just shook hands, told them my name, and I said, I'm a Libertarian running for auditor. And that's it. Literally nobody asked me what a Libertarian was. That was disappointing. You know, I was like hoping to have to actually say something, but no, it's like you're just a fly on the wall. But it worked. I got 75% of the vote. So, but.
Another common question I get from prospective candidates is time commitment. How much of a time commitment is serving in local office, and how do you balance it with your life outside of politics?
For an auditor, that's the worst. That's literally the worst question. Okay, we keep having a competition every year. We meet once a year, and basically it's to certify the accounting report, approve the raises for the people who are, you know, working for the township, primarily working supervisors. And we literally keep having a competition every year is, can we go less time next year? This year we got it done in 13 minutes. So that's the time commitment.
What about supervisor?
Supervisor, that's a couple hours a month. I had a lot of preparation for that, being on the LPPA board. But yeah, and the debates are incredible. Like I said, you know, the first time somebody brought up the dog ordinance, I literally blurted out, I said, "What's next? Crying kids?" It's more of being an educator when you're a libertarian. You have to stop and think, what would the libertarian response be for this? And you know, you say things like they had one resident that was dredging a lake that was on his property, and they're like, what if he's doing this? What if he's doing that? He could be doing this. And I said, has anybody bothered to go and ask the guy? And that's literally what I did. I drove up to his property and I asked him, I said, hey, you know, how come you're dredging your lake? And he said, well, you know, you have to maintain wetlands. With erosion, it wasn't as deep as it was. And with the drought, I figured this is the perfect time to do it. I'm like, oh, cool. Nice boat, you know? Mm-hmm. And I said, just curious. Thanks. Have a good day. Yeah. Everybody's making a federal case out of it. But.
So yeah, really something I forgot to say, but to piggyback off of what Pete just said, there's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think it's been in existence for like 100 years. Man, it's such simple stuff at times, but I recommend everybody reads it. Not even just for politics, but interacting with people, your day-to-day lives. It's amazing by just keeping your mouth shut, letting people talk, being respectful, learning that if I can avoid an argument and just, you know, agree or, you know, talk about what we do agree on, that goes a really long way. And you can drop people's defenses who typically towards politicians, you get defensive right away towards the government. I think we all do, right? You could drop that pretty easily when you show them, hey, no, I'm not the stereotypical politician trying to take your rights away. That's not us. So I think that book goes a long way. I'm just going to throw that out there. Time commitment. As the mayor, you're actually not even technically required to go to borough council meetings, but I do. I think it's just the expectation. IPMC meeting for code enforcement. I have my own thoughts and, you know, kind of things going on with that, but that meeting's on Tuesday. So just a handful of meetings, things that if you want to be a minimally involved mayor, there's really not a lot you have to do. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but to do a good job, it does take a good amount. I stop in at the borough office every Monday morning. I do like a weekly sync with the borough manager. It's a lot of text messages, phone calls, emails. Having a social media presence means I'm the first guy that people bring issues to, which also means I get the privilege of de-escalating anything before you get an angry mob showing up to the borough council meeting. So it does take some time. You know, some weeks I'm maybe only giving it 4 or 5 hours. Some weeks, if we have a lot of committee meetings, I'm trying to help celebrate the 250th anniversary of America. So I'm on that committee. You know, it can be up to 10, 15 hours. But like I said, it's all about time management. For perspective, I have a baby at home. He'll be turning 1 year old next week. I own a business. I do that full time. I volunteer with my fire company. I also still serve in the National Guard. So I keep myself pretty busy. It's all about time management. Managing a calendar when you go when you go work, just make sure you're very deliberate with what you do, be very intentional. But it's all very easy to do. And frankly, there's plenty of people that are willing to help, even if it's, celebrating, America's 250th anniversary. A lot of people out there, if you just ask, if you have a good social media presence and there's some things you can delegate, then there's a lot of things you can do with that help free up your time.
I'd say for myself, for the time commitment, a couple hours each week. Pretty much every other week we have a meeting. Usually that's about a 3-hour long time commitment. Every week we're getting updates from the superintendent, a couple page report about what's been going on. There's, keeping up with news in the school districts. There's a lot of ever-changing school district policy from the state and federal governments. We're always getting sort of new edicts, new issues. Like just a month ago, the state decided that now we have to teach cursive again. And so now we have to go through and identify spots in curriculum where we can insert learning cursive. There's always a lot of budget meetings. The school boards tend to have pretty big budgets considering, how many people they employ to teach all the kids and stuff. Then it's the one office, I guess, besides magistrate, where you have mandatory training. So there's a it's by term trainings, every 4-year training. There's always just a lot of information going on and things. And then you also, if you really want to do a good job and really get to know your community, there's a lot of community events you're going to want to go to. You're going to want to go to the school plays and the concerts and the recitals and the homecoming football game. You want to do those things to be out in the community, to see what your community members are seeing and give yourself the opportunity to interact with them. And there's all the times that people reach out to you with things they want to, talk about, complaints they have, and that's time on top of that. But I think it's manageable. I think it's also really rewarding. I think it's really rewarding work to help members of your community, especially to me, helping the kids in the community have a really good, well, hopefully a good education, at least improved over public schooling. So yeah, that's about the time commitment.
Right. What are some of the initiatives you've led while in office? Now, I realize some of you are pretty new, so I realize that, but how do you do it as the only libertarian voice in your government? Like, how do you get by with that very unique designation?
So, new initiatives, you're right. I just got elected in November, so there's not a lot to do, but there is one thing that I've already done with the help of another newly elected member. So that's 2 of 9 we were able to accomplish this. If previously, every time someone resigned from the board, the remaining board members didn't really announce it. They didn't have an application process. You couldn't apply. You couldn't show up and ask to be it. They just sort of picked someone they already knew, asked them to do it. And then at the next board meeting, they would vote that person in, and there wasn't really any discussion about it. We pushed, and we got an open application process. We had the 3 applicants give small speeches at the school board meeting, and then we asked questions of those applicants, and then we voted. For some context, in like the 5 years that I've been going to meetings, I only saw 3 times the votes weren't unanimous. That right there, immediately, that was not a unanimous vote, which I thought was great, because I don't think having unanimous votes, I don't think everyone having, groupthink and market is the best thing for us to do. Mm-hmm. So that's one initiative that we got through.
The fun part of being mayor is, as I mentioned, I deal with citizen complaints. So it's a chicken problem we currently have. A lot of very small things, and we're working on addressing, and things that they've been dealing with for years. And I just probably the first person to really just talk to them on the phone, the homeowner, and see if we can come to a common agreement. And we do. It's amazing. So there's a lot of progress in the small things that I get warned about, and then I deal with it, and I'm like, it really wasn't that bad. I think the approach style is very different. Code enforcement wise, my least favorite thing, it was one of the reasons why I ran, really, because I'm like, wow, there's this giant book for this square mile of things you can't do. And I'm like, that's pretty ridiculous. I pay how much in taxes? Between federal, state, local, the list goes on. We're all familiar with it. So that was kind of what made me run. And now being in this position, although I don't directly have a say over 100% certainty what happens in code enforcement, I do have a pretty strong opinion and at least a lot of leverage to kind of say what happens with it. Most recently, we have someone, he has a off-roading vehicle parked on his property, but it wasn't inspected. And our code enforcement officer put something on the window and he has to remove it in 15 days. And it's kind of this whole thing. And he's just going to go get an antique plate. So he's exempt from having to have it inspected, and he's going to find a legal loophole and just do the same thing anyway. So anyway, talking to him, I feel like we made a lot of progress, and that's where kind of what I talked about earlier. There's a lot of big movements there, but it's really just identifying every issue as what can I do to reach out as a person? I don't believe in this person said your grass is too tall, so we're going to send you a letter in the mail. People pay so much money in taxes, and frankly, people are very standoffish and defensive when the government kind of disregards the fact that they're good citizens, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, hey, there's a problem, you need to fix it. So my slogan is empathy over authority. I think that goes a long way. I feel like it's building an environment that other municipalities are starting to get jealous of, the citizens anyway, and they're really starting to look at their local governments and be like, hey, how comes Cleona does this? And hey, how comes they post summaries of all their meeting minutes on Facebook and they're engaging with their citizens? So although my impact is in Cleona on paper, is expanding much further than that. I have a lot of people in neighboring municipalities that just got elected, Republican and Democrat, that are asking for advice. My big project is that the lit up crosswalk signs, they're called RRFBs. I don't know if you guys know what those are. I saw some 10 minutes away from here. Our neighboring town has them. We don't have them. We've had 3 people killed on our main road in the last 10 years from getting hit by a vehicle. So within the first month of being the mayor, I got $50,000 verbally donated to us. Now we have to, the government process of getting it, but I'm getting all these improvements for Cleona that improve our safety, all from the donations of businesses by talking to people. You know, the real benefits of capitalism. So I'm excited at a local level to see this. They've attempted this in years past, and when they're like, oh, well, we don't feel like raising taxes, I guess we're just going to give up now. I'm not going to stop there. So we're going to make it happen, and there's a lot more that this is building momentum for, to really show the power of the people and how when we stand up and when you treat them well, they will treat you. And when you ask for their help, they will help you.
You ask about trying to reason with Republicans and Democrats who are actually on your board, but the most difficult challenge for me when I was a township supervisor wasn't the other supervisors. It was the township solicitor. And a lot of times you have a township solicitor. Now, sometimes they give good legal advice, but then they get carried away and they decide they're going to basically run your government. A perfect example is when we have volunteer firefighters, and the company's completely volunteer. As a matter of fact, what they do to raise money, they own a U-Store-It facility within the township. So that's actually how they do their fundraising. They lease out storage spaces. But every so often, townships will make a donation. Our solicitor decided to voice their opinion at a township meeting and basically say, no, what you need is a fire tax. And a fire tax. You mean in addition to the property taxes, the head tax, the lighting tax, the hydrant tax, we need a fire tax. And I don't think so. And he says, no, you have to have that. No, you're not on this supervisor. But yeah, sometimes it's literally your township solicitor. If anybody gets elected to a small town borough council or something like that, watch out for the township solicitor, because you can reason with a Republican or a Democrat. You actually can. You can sit down with them and basically say, look, I'll support this, you support this, or you can use just plain old common sense reasoning and say, it doesn't matter what party we are, this is the right thing to do. But the solicitor, they're insulated. They don't have to run for office. They're actually your employee. But when you have a township solicitor, our township solicitor is also a township solicitor for literally every other township around us. So they don't have to really worry about their job.
Mhm.
You can get voted out of office. They really can't. So they're the ones that are the biggest struggle, and were the biggest struggle for me.
You know, a lot of times I see local solicitors, basically their job is to cover for the supervisors. I see that too. They might give legal advice, but oftentimes it ends up just being to cover the supervisors' butts if they did something wrong. So,
Well,
I'll see
there are
that,
plenty
too.
of stupid supervisors out there, so they could use it.
Okay, someone might say, all right, you know, I'm interested in running, but I'm not super familiar with what happens in my local government. What sort of issues can I expect to come up in local politics, and what does the process look like behind the scenes in fixing any issues that come up? So say if something comes up, there's an issue, what goes on behind the scenes in sort of your office or in the local government that makes people say, okay, like, what are we going to do to fix this, if at all?
Wow, that's kind of like two loaded questions, because running for office and what they can do, I would recommend anybody who wants to run for a legislative position within, whether it be council or township supervisor, go to the meetings.
Mhm.
Learn what the hot buttons are, learn what's going on. And I literally used to go to township supervisor meetings, and of course they look at me and they'd say, "What are you doing here?" And I'd say, "I'm just want to see what I can learn," which kind of really upset a few people by their faces. You could literally see the blood drain out of their head. Yeah. But as far as going on behind the scenes, the problem is you're never going to really get to see that. And there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, executive sessions and items of that nature. And the unfortunate thing is you're not going to see it until you get there. I will tell you this. I used to always think that a Class 2 township is the most powerful government in the United States, because you're both executive branch and legislative branch. In the reality, you're actually a ref between two warring neighbors all the time. And that's 90% of where the problems are. The dog barking ordinance, two neighbors who didn't get along. And that was going to be, you know, one had a Rottweiler who was left out most of the night. And the guy just didn't like the dog. And he even told me that he was ready to just go over to his neighbor's yard and shoot the dog. And I was, you really don't want to do that. It was a mistake to tell me that, and you really don't want to do that. But they brought it up, they get on the agenda, and they say their piece, and you get a bunch of people behind you, and the next thing you know, you got a hot fire.
Mm.
So
I think I always knew that government works slow, but I found out it does work slow. I mentioned the whole crosswalk safety project, and I have to work with the borough engineers. Well, first I had to get permission from borough council. Then we're going to work with the borough engineers. We're going to submit it to PennDOT. Oh, wait, we have to do a resolution and an agreement first at the next borough council meeting before we can submit the paperwork. And then we're going to have to wait for 90 days. So as far as like the bigger projects, this stuff definitely takes quite a while. We're going to get it done this year, I have no doubt. And I'll write them a letter every day at PennDOT if I have to. But that part of it definitely takes a while. There's a lot to learn. I started to go to council meetings maybe about six months or 8 months before the election was. So maybe I didn't have the most understanding. And like Pete said, there's only so much you can understand. A lot of it's just when you get in the position, and now people are telling you, hey, you got to do this. Hey, there's a big snowstorm coming in. You got to declare an emergency. Okay. And they just give you a paper and you sign it, you know? So a lot of it's just kind of trial by fire. I wouldn't stress having to know a ton ahead of time. It does help with tools like AI. You can download all of the meeting minutes from the past 5 years of your municipality and build a big master list of everything that went on. So that's kind of what I did. That really helped fill me in on the details that I wasn't involved in before. And really just asking people, it depends on the people you have around you. Our borough manager is really cool. I went to high school with his daughter. I've been treated very well by the people on my council, and they've just been very easy to work with. So I'm fortunate for that. So I know not everybody will be in the same boat. I'm definitely very lucky. But really just asking people, they're not afraid to give it. It all goes back to if you start with respect and you tell them like, hey, I'm glad to work with you. I need some help. They're more than welcome. They're typically more than welcome to give it to you.
I'm still learning how it all works. You have preconceived notions going in. You read all the online articles and all that about how it all works, and you get in, and it's not quite that. Or when something is the way something is, but you don't necessarily realize to the extent. Like I didn't realize to what extent like the superintendent really just controls so much and makes so many decisions, and how little the school board actually does. So I don't think I have that good of an answer to the question, because I myself am still learning how it all works. But the sort of the libertarian critique of the bureaucratic state is even accurate on the most local levels. The people you hire have a lot more say than I think we all realize. And whenever you go to the board or council to complain, there's actually not really that much they themselves can do. It's reliant on them leaning on the employees of that government to change processes, change procedures, change decisions.
And that's actually a good segue into my next question, and my personal favorite question last time is, surely local governments can't be as bad as state and federal governments, right? What's the most absurd law your community has tried to pass? And I guess some of you are pretty new, so maybe we could expand the scope of the question to be, what's the most absurd law that's been passed in your community that you might be trying to fix going forward into your terms?
This one's actually from many, many years ago. But at one point, the school district tried to ban backpacks. You guys remember? Yeah. So they went to ban backpack. They were like, they're too big. Kids might bring guns in. But you could go to school with the backpack, but then you had to put it in your locker. But you could have a drawstring bag, which if you... Yeah, and only transparent clear backpacks as well. That was pretty ridiculous. No one wanted to do that at all. It wouldn't work for all the sports gear people had, so that got shut down.
I think this is, I have the most faith in our ability to change local elections. Now, we will go for, we're going to aim for the moon. We're going to go for state and federal elections too. But at the local level, there's one thing that I got, I didn't get in trouble because I wasn't going to listen anyway. We have a political sign ordinance, which will be one of my jobs to get rid of it. It says you can't put out a political sign any sooner than 60 days prior to the election. I put my yard signs out 2 weeks before that. Well, the previous mayor saw that, contacted the borough office. I got an angry email saying, you need to take those out. I'm like, oh, that's actually really funny. Camp Hill Borough got sued for that and actually taken to the U.S. Court of Appeals because their ordinance that looked almost exactly the same was unconstitutional and it violated their First Amendment rights. So I found that U.S. Court of Appeals case and I sent it back in the email and was like, actually, I'm not taking it out of my yard. And yeah, so I got away with that. They didn't reply. They didn't fight it. But like I mentioned earlier, there's so many ordinances. And if you really took time to dig through, it's like, well, that's excessive. A lot of code enforcement stuff. You can't have obnoxious vegetation in your yard. What's obnoxious? It is in the eye of the code enforcement officer or whoever got mad about it or whoever complained. There's just a lot of stuff that at a small level we can actually change. And that's where I'm really involved in being the mayor. And that's really my goal. We're just used to getting abused by the federal government at this point. Unfortunately, it's just, the corruption is so deep, but at least at the local level, we can make a much bigger impact. We can recruit our friends and family that live in the same area. Social media awareness, it's huge. If you get 100 people to show up to a council meeting, there's a better chance they can still vote the way that they were going to, but there's a better chance they're going to do something about it. So yeah, I just think there's a huge impact. There's a lot, like the political sign one that's been established since I think the 80s maybe. But this whole chicken problem, like I mentioned, they're trying to pass an ordinance that says you can't have them, and it better defines it, and there's just a whole bunch of a bunch of small things that it'll take a while to go through all of it, but a lot of it just seems excessive.
I don't think we have enough time for me to give you my list.
You already mentioned the barking.
Yeah,
Yes, the
one.
barking, that ranks up there. I put that in the top 3 or 4. We have one that is kind of ridiculous. For people, I don't know if anybody has any solar panels on their house or was ever looking into it, but our township, and we're the only township that does it, limits the power output of solar panels put on your roof. So you're trying to, number one, save some money on your electric bill and try to get so much power out of it so that you don't have to have an electric bill. They got green people all over the country trying to encourage this, and our township says, no, your solar panels cannot produce more than 11.5 kilowatts. And when you ask why, they don't got an answer. They just said, we got to be in the forefront and leadership of dealing with this kind of thing. Like I said, I probably would take 3 or 4 hours if I were to go through everything that's kind of crazy. And I should preface this. I honestly think I have one of the more libertarian-minded townships. We don't have a police department. Everybody's armed. Our property taxes for the municipal property taxes are dirt low. I mean, I don't mind saying it, 0.18 mils. We run a surplus every year. We have enough money in our treasury and in the bank to replace every item of snow plowing equipment and road repair equipment that we got. We are literally the blueprint for libertarianism. But we do have a lot of crazy laws. Laws limiting the size of your sign that advertises your business. Laws that won't let a dog bark at 9 p.m. Laws that bar you from having too big of a wood burning, those wood burning outhouses that they have. Yeah, it's got to be below a certain size. So when we have our convention big enough that we can spare 3 hours, I'll be happy to try and go through all of our laws that are crazy. And this from one of the most libertarian townships in the state.
Another question that I often receive, and maybe you can sort of reflect when you were thinking about running for office, all of the offices you considered when thinking about this question. How do I know what office is right for me and if I'd be a good candidate for it?
The smaller you start, the better. Start with auditor, start with constable, start with dog catcher. The smaller you start, the better. Number one, nobody wants it. So you're not going to have to go crazy trying to fulfill it. But when I hear people who I want to run for Congress, but they've never run for an office before and they want to run for Congress. The big ones, the glamour ones, the ones that give a big paycheck, those are the wrong ones to start with. You want to start small, and the smaller the better.
At least in my town, I took the opposite approach. I just went for mayor right away. And it's because of knowing who I was running against. I was like, he's just got to go. I don't know. To me, it was now or never. I might have maybe just been able to wait 4 years, but I didn't feel like waiting. I was like, while I'm motivated, I'm just going to do it now. There was an open 2-year borough council spot. So ultimately he ended up in that then. We both tried to get write-ins. It stayed open. I got the most write-ins, and then he just got appointed into it anyway. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like I said, Square Mile Town, is it a larger role as mayor? Sure. But it's not like, running for Congress and have no political experience whatsoever. So I definitely think there is value in learning and frankly, just building your credibility. If you can do a really good job, like I mentioned earlier, if you can turn people to the point where they just see he knows what he's doing, he's a good guy, he's going to keep doing good things, and you convince them enough, they will cross over that political party threshold. And it does not matter what you are. You'll have all political parties voting for you just because you did a good enough job and have good enough examples. Someone's bringing up John Fetterman, for example, did that in Braddock, and it really took him to where he's at now. So I think there's a lot of value in having influence and just being able to be someone that builds a reputation and can grow with it.
How to know when it's time to run? When it comes to local elections, so I'm thinking, like school board and down, county, if you have a pretty small county, that wouldn't be like Allegheny County, but I know there are some counties that have like a reasonable like size voter base. When you find yourself Googling when the elections are or what the exact positions are, when you're that interested, that's when it's time to start to take it seriously and go, okay, if not me, then who else? And if the answer is no one else, I would really encourage you to think about doing it yourself. If all of us always just say, someone else can do it, not me, I need someone else to do it, not me, I want someone else to do it, nothing will ever get done. It gets to a point where you have to say, okay, I'm going to be the one to stand up and try to make a change and run for this and try to make a difference. So that's when I think it's time for you to run.
This is my last one. Someone might hear all of that, everything that goes on locally, and they say, okay, I'm sold. I want to run for office. What do I do now? What sort of inroads can I make when I'm running? And can my bid be successful even if I don't win?
So in the sort of like practical world, start Googling the office and when elections is, all the elections deadlines, talk to your local affiliate if there is one, see who's sort of the most knowledgeable about elections there, start asking them questions. If they don't really know, reach out to like your region rep, ask them questions. If they need help, they'll tag in someone from the elections committee to start to answer your questions. That's on the practical side. When it comes to the actual campaigning, start going to the meetings. Just start going and start listening. If there's community members, ask them why they're there. Ask them why they come. Ask them what's important to them. That is when you will start to make your inroads in the community. Start going to the big local events and just walk around. If there's like, vendor tables and stuff, talk to every vendor. Ask people questions. Get to talk to your neighbors more and more and more. That's how you start to build inroads. And as you talk to more and more people, you will become viewed as someone who's a community leader, as someone who's a resource to everyone. And then people will start to come to you. And when people start to come to you, that's exactly where you want to be, because that's sort of from there, that's the pathway you take to being that elected leader.
Yeah, I really have to agree with everything that Reece said. In my case, like I mentioned, having a business and building that credibility was huge. And that's where, even if you're not really sure if you want to take a public office, but just doing something to get your name out there. In my case, to kick off my campaign, the flagpole at the borough office, it was the lanyard was broken on it, or the rope was broken on it. It needed some work, but we haven't had a flag flying at the borough office for like 2 or 3 months at that point. And I got kind of tired of it. So being a member of the fire company, I went and bought all the supplies. I borrowed a fire truck and I took the ladder truck up and I fixed it, but I have Meta Ray-Ban glasses. And I took video footage and turned it into a reel. So when I kicked off my campaign, there was me fixing the flagpole so we could have the U.S. flag flying on the 4th of July at our borough office. That gained a lot of traction really quickly. Scott Church, who was running for a little while as mayor in Lebanon City, we have this Veterans Memorial, and there's a big Army tank static display there. And he organized a campaign to get it pressure washed because it looked really dirty. And that built him a ton of traction. If you can coordinate something really big that gets your name out there, is doing something really good for the community, whether it's partnering with a nonprofit, or when we had the SNAP benefits that were decreased, I organized something to get the community to donate to different food pantries and those carrying boxes that people have that you can give, or you can, put stuff. Those things were invaluable because it just shows people that, oh, you're not just doing, you're not just saying you're doing things, you're actually doing it. And here's, footage of it. So yeah, just really building, talking to people. I went door to door. I got door hangers. I didn't go to nearly as many houses as I had hoped for, but a lot of feedback I got was, oh, wow, I'm so glad you took the time to talk to us and, hear what you wanted to do in our town. We didn't even know who the previous mayor was, and he didn't really care anyway. So just being that person that shows that you care will make you stand out. And if you can do ways that, or if you can figure out ways that show that before you campaign and when you do start campaigning, that sets you apart from the standard politician, and people will want to vote for you just for that reason.
There's a book that's out right now, been out for a few years, based on a very famous graduation speech. And the title of it is, If You Want to Change the World, Start Off by Making Your Bed. It was written by a fairly well-known admiral. Number 2, he had a list of about 10 things you need to do. Number 2, if you want to change the world, you're going to need help. Get some. The first thing you should do if you want to run for office is call your Libertarian affiliate chair. I've been the affiliate chair in my affiliate in Berks for over 5 years. I'm on a first name basis with my BOE representative. So if I want to know what the petition signature requirements are for a given office in Berks County, I call her up and I simply ask. And she gives me the answer. If I want the petitions tomorrow, I go in and I ask her face to face. So if someone calls me from a township that I've barely heard once or twice in the past 20 years and says, Pete, how do I run for this office? I can say, I'll call up BOE. I'll find your signature requirements. I'll find what you've got to do. You're going to need help. Get some. You're in the best party in the world for getting help to run for public office. You'd be amazed how many Republicans and Democrats I hear, oh, yeah, I wasn't on the ballot this year. I missed my cutoff. I didn't know my office was up. I didn't know that I had to get my petition in. When I sat as a supervisor, the guy next to me was a Republican, and he said, yeah, they didn't get their petition. And I said, if they were with us, that wouldn't happen. And he's like, how can that not happen? I said, because we'll be reminding them literally every day for the past 3 months before you even start petitioning. Are you ready to petition? Are you ready to petition? There's no forgetting. We won't let them.
Yeah.
So if you want to run for office, call your affiliate chair. They're there to help.
Excellent. That was the last question that I had. Real quick, while I have everyone's attention, the convention committee, I guess, voted on awards to hand out for convention, and we have one of them now. Our award for Rising Star and Future Leader is Mr. Matt Zechman. So I wanted to get that to him while he was here. I know he has some time constraints, but I wanted to get that to him because, I mean, he put on a hell of a campaign, and his efforts are truly appreciated, and I'm really looking forward to see what comes in the future from Matt. So thank you again, Matt, for running. And thank you to everyone who has run in the past, and thank you to our other panelists for running as well. You put a great face for liberty to the public. So thank you very much.
All right, everybody, we got about 15 minutes till we gavel back in for the afternoon session. Go ahead and make sure your stuff is cleaned up, and let's get ready to rock and roll. We're just going to reset a few things and get rolling. Thank you.